Or let's not, I guess. I just pushed the button and the thing was like, I
As a
don't think
birthday
so.
gift to you, StreamYard was like, you need a couple of seconds break.
Do you know, I heard from a very reputable source that one certain author of the award-winning book Winfluence is switching to StreamYard.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting.
So I can't take the shine off that. So I'm not going to say any more words right
Do
now.
I get credit for that, or is it because he got tired of
You,
looking at your StreamYard ad?
I think it was a problem of
Oh,
something to do with restream, but what happens, it really happens. Oh, thank you, Chloe. Very kind of you.
isn't she lovely?
I should say that we should make a point that we intend to invite our new friend Jacob onto the show to be his own standalone guest coming up in the next week or so. So,
Yes.
Jacob, you don't have to wait for an open mic night. We're going to make you a full-fledged guest. So, look for that invitation.
Yes, I can't wait.
So, but
So
today,
excited.
we're going to talk about housing advocacy. We're going to talk about, is it really about your pet or is it about the person? Stacey Coleman is one of the very few people we've had on as a second guest, and she seemed a little shocked when I told her that. But I feel like my opinion changed so much after having that conversation with her that we needed another whole conversation.
There's more to talk about. There's definitely more to talk about. I
Right.
feel like.
Thank you, Elizabeth. So yeah, we've got to dig into this. We got to talk to our pal
This is
Stacey
so
Coleman.
crazy. We're doing like important work on your birthday. On my birthday, we just like screwed off like
Yeah.
games.
What's wrong with this?
I don't know.
Hi everyone, Tim Kitzrow from NBA Jam and NFL Blitz, welcoming you to The Backpack Show. Your hosts, Chris Brogan, Kerry Gargone, Boom Shakalaka.
Backpack Show. Okay, so one truth though. Hi, Dad. One truth. They called and sang for me already. One truth about people with anxiety and who are super introverts is that I want both things at the same time. I want like celebrate, but over there, or celebrate just a little. So
Celebrate me in the next room while I hide out and play video games.
That's right. I'll be playing a video game, and you bring me a cupcake. I'll be sick after. Okay, so but we gotta grab Stacey because I mean I want to know so much. I made a.
Do you have any ads you're supposed to do? I know it's your birthday, but I'm just putting it out.
Okay.
That's it. Get StreamYard. Make your own show.
Eat some peas.
No, that's for your audio podcast.
I definitely. This is my real birthday. I definitely need to. We'll pick up another couple sponsors because I think it's fun. Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Jacob. You can come and lose to me in Fortnite. That'll be my gift. Crossplay. So thank you, Paul. So Castos.com is a podcast hosting company. It is somewhat run by my pal Matt Medeiros. I don't think he's the boss, but I don't care. He's my friend, so he runs it. So you can have a audio version of the Backpack Show anywhere you want because Castos hosts it. But you can put your own podcast on there. You could have your own show on either there or here. StreamYard, cbrogan.me/
or both, much as we do.
Do what we do. When we do this show, when I finish and say goodbye to our guest, Stacey Coleman, we click the button that says download this audio file, and then I just drag it into Castos, put up a piece of art, and I'm done. The show's made. It's that easy, no kidding. The only tricky thing you have to do is you have to do with every podcast is, enter it to all those places.
He's gonna play. He's ready to play.
Jacob, I'm an Xbox guy, so it's cross-play, but it's bad aim, bad jokes.
Oh, truth in advertising.
Totally true. Give peas a chance. All right, let's grab Stacey Coleman before more bad jokes happen. Stacey, save
She's
us.
laughing. They can't be all bad.
No.
Save us. So we talked to you the first time in general about pit bulls, and I do this every time now. We talk about pit bulls, but now we're talking about animal and people advocacy. No, this is the weirdest place to start, but I was checking your banners that Carrie had made for you, and I said, let me go back to this one for a second. I said, Stacey, I'm reading it. Stacey Coleman, Executive Director at Animal Advocacy Organization, animalfoundation.org. Yeah, that was a good read, Brogan.
Nice job.
She goes, can I correct that? I said, of course. That's it's your show. She says, I am an Executive Director for Animal and People Advocacy. It's both. It's animals and people. I'm already learning. Stacey, all I'm doing is trying to put the damn banner up, lady. And you already taught me something. Can you talk about why that's important to say?
I can, but first I think it's important to say happy birthday, Chris.
Aww.
Thank you. And thanks, Frank Zappa. So I appreciate
yeah,
both of
absolutely.
you.
Frank says happy birthday too. And what are you, 34 today?
I am. I'm 34 plus 20 minus 3.
He's younger than I am.
Good. Well, anyway, good for you. I'm sorry, what was the question? I was so
I don't know.
thinking about happy
Listen,
birthday.
the difference between animal advocacy and animal and people advocacy.
Well, because
Oh,
pets
okay.
don't like live in isolation. They have people who love them.
Right. So pets always live in the context of humans. So we think about, and this is a current conversation in like animal sheltering right now, animal welfare, whatever that means. I think it should be called companion animal welfare, but it's a conversation everybody's having right now, because one of the things that was a really common trope was people say they get into working with animals because they like animals better than people, which always bothered me because unless you can take care of all of them yourself, we're going to need some people to help out. So we really need to start including people in our advocacy work for animals, because pets always live in the context of humans. That's what makes them pets.
I didn't have a next sentence. I was thinking
Jacob says your fake age is not old.
Oh, okay. Yeah. 51's old. I'm older than Jacob's parents. The reason we brought you in the first time is because we were learning about things about pit bulls, and we were learning about the fact that there's a lot of the legislation written up about them is not really about the dog. It's about what it does to control racial situations, or to put another tool or another weapon in the hands of people who want to prosecute for race. This feels like that again. This feels like what we're talking about, housing and all that. That's one of the things that's afoot. What other pieces are afoot when we're talking about dogs, people, and housing?
He was lying, Jacob. Doesn't matter.
Sorry, we're having a side convo with Jacob while we're talking. I'm asking very important questions about.
All right, Fussy. Go ahead.
All of that is important, and he is lying, so now I know. I think it's important to say first why we do the quotes. So if you missed it the first time around, the reason here at Animal Farm Foundation we say pit bull in quotes is because there is no standard definition for what a pit bull is. People have an idea of what they think a pit bull is. They have an idea of what they want it to be defined as, but there's no standard definition in sheltering. There's no legal definition through the court system or through the legislation. And there is no kennel club definition. So when we say pit bull, we have no interest in defining what pit bull is or isn't, but we do have an interest in protecting those dogs that get that label and the people who share their lives with them from being marginalized. You know what? Whoever asked that question, yes, we did have fish come through our dog shelter at one point. So you never know what happens. They went on to a new home. But so when it comes to the housing insurance issue, the number one reason people think dogs are relinquished to shelter because they have behavior issues, or there's something wrong, or that people are bad and so they just gave up on their pets. That's all old school thinking. That's just not the way it is. People are overwhelmingly so very good to their pets and will give their last dime to take care of their pets. So we need to let that notion go. That's not why pets end up in the shelter. But dogs, especially bigger dogs, larger sized dogs, end up in the shelter because of a housing crisis or a housing situation. Mm-hmm. And it's no secret that housing insecurity is a big thing in this country right now. It's a tragedy. It's a terrible thing that's occurring. But one of the things that drives it is that people refuse to give up their pets. So they choose to keep their dog with them and find transient housing, or just live outside, or live in a shelter for humans so that they can keep their pets. So we started looking at this, and it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but the fact is the insurance industry as a whole is founded on discriminatory practices. So redlining is a thing. The way neighborhoods were developed and people were controlled and population and growth within neighborhoods was controlled by white folks who were running the show.
So
And
what's redlining actually? Like
Redlining-
Jacob is really young, so you have to explain.
Oh, sure. No, I didn't. I'm sorry. I missed that question. So redlining is the practice of when communities were developed and then lenders, mortgage lenders, or insurance industry or schools even would look at the areas of people that were considered to be more at risk to their success. And so they kind of redlined around those neighborhoods. And that became the hot zone of where you don't want to give a mortgage, where you don't want to provide insurance, housing insurance, where you don't want to build better schools, where you don't want to build doctors' offices, because it's assumed that the folks that live in those particular red line districts are marginal. But they're not marginal because of who they are. They've been marginalized by years and years and years of systematic oppression. And so that seems like a really long way to get around to why it's important to talk about housing insurance discrimination. But when you follow the equation, so there's an assumption that pit bull dogs live with those kinds of people. And if we need to go back over and show you the evidence that we have for that, I'm glad to do it.
Sure.
But so we already know that pit bull dogs are assumed to live with folks who are at a higher risk, possibly marginalized by systematic oppression or the idea of redlining. And then those folks live now in an area where insurance providers don't want to write. So then the insurance providers take that assumption about people who own pit bull dogs and apply it to everybody they think owns pit bull dogs or any other. There's several other dogs on the list. Like some places do that with German Shepherds, Rottweilers, Akitas, all different kinds of dogs that have had reputations throughout the years. And then all of those folks tend to have trouble finding housing insurance unless you have multiple policies. So if you are somebody who needs rental insurance or homeowners insurance, plus you have a car that you need to insure, maybe you have a boat you want to insure too, maybe
obviously I have a boat.
Right.
I live in Tennessee.
I'm sorry. So then we find out that the folks who have multiple policies, the insurers are more likely to go, oh, we don't care about your dog then, because now they've decided that these folks have enough money to have multiple things that require multiple policies. So they're probably less of a risk because they're probably better people. And that is classist and racist and unfair. And it's targeting people who are just trying to make a living and get by. And we want it to stop.
Stacey, I want to go back. The redlining conversation, by the way, was very helpful because a lot of people don't know the term, but it's also interesting that, the point is that the insurance system, it's been systemic racism since long before anyone knew what the phrase meant. No one ever used that word out loud. No one even said it. No one said, I think we'll start an insurance company today. That's how we'll keep them out there. But that is, and that's how it got done. The other thing is, the concept of wrong side of the tracks, it makes it very real financially for sure. But that it can't, I guess I was just realizing that when I talk to you, the thing that makes this more consumable, I guess, or easier to start trying to pick apart what it's about, is that then the animals are sort of this weird proxy. Pit bull dogs and like you said, Rottweilers and all those other guys are a proxy to having to try to unwind and unravel a whole bunch of law that has to do with racism. Is that, you love animals? Is this also why you love this advocacy? Does that relate?
I do love animals and I love people because I think I think people overwhelmingly so are really amazing. But the reason I do this advocacy work is because I hate suffering. That's why I do the advocacy work. That's why we do the work we do, is because the suffering is not acceptable to us. So we feel like we must use our experience and our resources to take on some of these bigger fights, because we can do this. So we have access to science and we have access to researchers, and we know for sure, even though the insurance companies industry, they won't disclose their actuarial data, we know for sure that their data is fatally flawed, because no data exists, period, to support this sort of restrictions on breed and targeting insurance consumers because of what their dog looks like. There is nothing out there. If there were, we would know. But since insurance is private and not government, they don't have to disclose their actuarial data. And if y'all don't know what actuarial data is, that's the fancy term for what the people who determine risk for insurance companies call themselves, is actuaries.
It's how they figure out when you're going to die and stuff, and like how, like, basically what's going to happen to you based on statistically what's happened to people just like you.
Precisely.
Right?
Precisely. Yep. They're risk
chart.
Prognosticators.
Yeah, don't talk to one. They'll be like, oh, you're going to have a coronary 5 years from now, and sayonara. So get that estate ready.
Right. So yeah, no, that's why we do the work, Chris, is we just don't like that suffering.
There's a whole side conversation happening over here between Carol and Chip.
And things.
I don't know. Yeah, Chip. So Chip started out saying he was dating himself by revealing that he had to like try and break out some technology to help him figure out your real age. She said she was trying to help him out, and they keep going through like conversation. And eventually they make their way over to talking about mimeographs. So I don't know, you have a rich and interesting conversation happening at the Backpack Show, whether or not we are even talking about it. So Carol says they say actuaries are accountants without the scintillating personality. Not good dinner party guests. Yeah, that's probably true.
I would like to have dinner with some.
Elizabeth says, thank you for your work. Oh, with actuary? I wouldn't. I'd be like, please don't. Never tell me the odds.
So Elizabeth's an apartment dweller, and she says, thank you for that work. She's experienced restrictions even on her Chihuahua Beagle mix. Extra pet fees, even with a little small boot dog.
Right. And extra pet fees are exclusionary. And I understand if a landlord needs to protect their investment because they're making a living too, right? So like we talked about before, we're all just out here making a living, right? So we want to protect the landlord right to make a living, but not hide behind exclusionary policies to do so. It shouldn't be acceptable. There should be, if they really want to just protect against damage, then they should look for references on the pet. Where has the pet lived before? They should maybe do a tiered thing depending on the size of the animal, and protect your investment that way.
I got caught up in the side conversation. So I think the issue becomes then how people who are being kind of weeded out of housing by these exclusionary rules, how they can make change happen, because they can't afford it, right? It's like they're actually excluding the people who can least afford to say something about it. For one thing, having pets is expensive. So you've already put all your money into even having a pet.
Right. Right. And lots of people who have pets have kids too, especially people who rent. And then I remember I had a conversation with, I was meeting with some folks in Los Angeles talking about discrimination in housing with pet owners. And I was meeting with a group of social workers, and I asked them, so think about the people, your client list right now, your caseload. How many people are like a single mom who has kids and a dog, and mom works out of the house, and now their apartment or their home that they're renting says you can't have your dog anymore. And now suddenly mom has to make the choice of, do I give up the dog, or do I move my kids to a new school district and have a longer commute to work? What do I do? And I saw it wash across the faces of the people who are social workers who know that this happens. This is a real life thing. These are real people just getting by, just making a living, just doing their thing. And then the insurance industry is allowed to label them as at risk with no substantiating evidence. No, No, let's see that evidence. Let's make sure we're getting it right. That's what we're saying. Oh,
So what
and-
can you do then? Like, what
I would-
if people are in that situation? What
Right.
what avenues are there?
Well, one of the things that would be really helpful right now is we have started a project called Dogs, People, and Housing Insurance. And there's a website dedicated to it. And anybody who has experienced any sort of discrimination in getting a home or insurance for your home or insurance for your rental or getting a rental because the landlord's insurer says they won't cover it, your pet, they can go to this website and they can find their commissioner, who is the liaison to the insurance industry in their state. So every state and U.S. territory has what's called a National Association of Insurance Commissioners representative. That's NAIC. And that person's job is to listen to the state citizens, listen to the constituents, and relay those complaints or complications or compliments, if you have them, back to the insurers that operate in their
So optimistic. To dream, Stacey, to dream.
a girl dream, right? So, but that's what everybody can do right now, and the website is really accessible. So we know that not everybody has a computer. So if you can call us, you can do that too. The telephone number is 845-868-7559. You can call us and we'll help you fill out the form. If computer stuff is not your thing, you can go in there and send us an email. Anyway, it's available in Spanish. It's very easy to do. And you can just tell your story, your personal story, to your state's commissioner, and then they'll relay that to the insurance industry. And if we get enough folks to speak up, they're going to have to listen.
And also any compliments you have.
And also any compliments you have. Yeah.
That's so sweet.
Along the way, I guess I wonder, when did you know you would be this? When did you know this would be Stacey? Like, were you like 7 punching other people because they were not, you took some other kids, popsicle, so I'm going to have to set this straight? Like, how long have you been this Stacey?
I think I've been this Stacey my whole life. So it's not really anything new to me, but I know that I have it in me to do this kind of stuff, and not everybody can, and I'm lucky enough that I get paid to do it. This is my job. So there are people who do the same thing, but they have a different job that makes their way in the world. And so then they have to do this on a volunteer basis. I'm lucky enough that I get to do this as my job. So I get to put a lot more time in on something that a lot of people have an interest in. There are some states in this country that are passing or promoting, introducing legislation to preempt the discrimination in insurance for pets. And there is a legislation introduced recently in Nevada, and the insurance industry, there's they have subset like groups and consortiums and whatever. And there's one called APCIA, which is, I don't know, American Property Casualty Insurance Company, something. Anyway, so they submitted a letter in opposition to this legislation that would preempt and prevent breed discriminatory insurance underwriting. And the thing that they wrote in opposition was atrocious. They didn't source it, but I happen to know where they got the source from, because there is one website in this world that exists that makes up statistics.
I doubt there's just one, Stacey.
Well, in my little realm, there is one website that makes stuff up, and they make it look like it's real, but it isn't. And people fall for it all the time.
It's so easy. You just make it an infographic.
Yeah.
Do you also help with service animal certificates?
No, but the thing is, you don't need a certificate if you have a service animal. So if you really have a service animal, then what you need is a letter from your doctor that states that you have a medical condition that requires the assistance of a service animal, and the ADA protects you. It's federal law, so it trumps any state or local law. It trumps anything a landlord might try to tell you or a property management group might try to tell you. You can have your dog. You just need to have a letter from your doctor that says it's required for equal access.
There's a little bit of speciesism in the service animal world as well, because I've been trying really hard to advocate for getting a service cobra, and that has not been allowed.
All right. So now I have to ask, since your parents are here, at what point was it clear you were going to be this Chris? Like you asked, hey, Stacey, when did you become this Stacey? Well, Chris, when was Chris?
Did you want
this
a service
Chris?
cobra?
Like, how early?
I think I saw Ricky Tikki Tavi when I was 11, and I realized the absolute dominance of cobras. And I thought they'd be an incredible creature. Think about the things they can do that a service dog can't do. If there's just something on a shelf and the shelf's too high, cobra, got it. Right? Like there's a lot of things. Rain, cobra, I'm covered. Right? You can't use your dog as an umbrella. There's so many things a cobra can do. So, but joking aside, I have seen things like people trying to have a service
like a support
peacock.
pig.
So and I think it's another part of this though, Stacey. And I started with a joke, so it's hard to tell you that I'm being serious, but I am. I think it's another part of it that people don't realize, that service animals are another area where people get into those challenges. But it's harder, I think, because of what Elizabeth was kind of pointing to is there's a lot of people who misuse a lot of the service animal rules to sort of shield or protect themselves, and drag their pets onto planes and things like that, just because they love Buppy, not because they need Buppy.
Right. Yeah, no, you are correct. And the ADA is pretty clear in that it protects folks who rely on the use of miniature horses and dogs for equal access. So the ADA, the Americans with Disabilities Act, is all about equal access and enjoyment of life. So if either of those two species adds to your ability to have equal enjoyment, it is considered a service animal under federal law.
But there's silence on cobras.
There is silence on cobras, although I have to say, Chris, my very, very ever first pet that was mine was a cat, and I named him Ricky Tikki Tavi.
That's so cute.
But don't confuse service animals with emotional support animals. So emotional support animals provide something different. Emotional support animals.
Sorry.
Emotional support animals are usually covered by the Fair Housing Act, because you're more inclined to have those at home instead of for equal access, which is provided by the ADA. So it sounds confusing, but it really isn't. And if you're having trouble, I really suggest you speak to a civil rights attorney, because they understand that law better than an animal rights attorney. It's not an animal issue, just like we keep saying, it's a people issue. It's people.
And they should at least talk to you the first time without charging you a bunch of money.
They should.
Most attorneys will do that,
Yeah.
even if you can't afford to retain them.
Correct.
So your dad says you were 9.5 years old at Mrs. Manter's when you made your debut on stage, Chris.
That is not untrue.
What did you do on stage?
That's the question.
I told other people's jokes. At that point, no one had told me certain jokes really probably weren't great coming out of a 9.5-year-old's mouth. I told not race jokes. I told culture jokes because I was Irish, and I would tell French people jokes and Irish people jokes and that sort of thing. No warning that maybe don't do that. So,
well, did they realize you were about to get on stage and do that stuff? Yeah. So how could they warn you? Hey, I don't know when this will be relevant, but don't tell.
It's like when I convinced my parents to let me see Jaws, and then was upset with them for the rest of my life.
You're very persuasive. Elizabeth says pigs are cute. Oh, I'm reading all about there. It's a very rich and nuanced side conversation today, Stacey.
So listen, I have a question.
Animals touch people right in the feels.
They do. Cobras touch you right in the throat. Watch out for those service
You know what
cobras.
is depressing about cobras is it turns out they're not that mean. They're like super nice.
Says you. That's what they want you to think. Rap. They have very good marketers.
You see that 3-year-old Indian girl just yanking them all over the place in the cobra. Leave me alone. I want to rest. All right. So I'm on dogspeopleandhousinginsurance.org, and I just had this thought or this question. This site is for people maybe who are set and trying to look through some information on a lot of different levels. I just had the thought of if somebody is not housed and they're trying to figure out what they can and can't do. Like maybe they've been not housed for a little while, and someone's trying to separate them from their pet and all that. Is there another kind of site, not to put more work on your shoulders, Stacey, but is there another kind of site required that's going to have to like straight barrel this thing and make it super clear and step by step, here's what you do, and now you have to go find this person? Like, is there an instruction recipe we could give people, or should give people, or should there be just a page on this site that lets people understand, here's what you do now that a cop is telling you you can't keep your dog in your tent city or whatever? Do you see what I'm going after there?
I do. And I'm not familiar with any particular site, but I do know that there are communities that are doing better jobs than others to help create housing where folks can keep their pets. If they're houseless, then the community is doing a better job at finding housing where folks can stay together, because they're realizing that the pets are their family, and sometimes it's the only consistent thing you have in your day. It's the only thing you can count on to be tried and true every day is that pet.
Right.
Stacey, I'm so sorry, but cobras are the perfect animal for social distancing. This is it. I'm undone by the comments today, Stacey.
It's a little weird. It's like having two shows at once. But thank you for your answer to my germane question.
Oh, you hush your mouth.
My mom also points out she had a little pig when she was she had a pig when she was little.
So some people are not housed because they refuse to give up their pets, and that's one important thing to realize, Right. So it's not just a question of like, I want to have the pet where I am now. It's how can I remove these obstacles so me and my pet can be in a better and more secure situation.
Right. And we need to stop assuming that folks who are houseless have something else wrong with them. There's an assumption that folks who are houseless also have mental illness.
Mental trauma, yeah.
Yeah, or that they're lazy and don't get a job. Nope. We got to let that go.
Invisible People, Mark Horvath, they do a lot of work in that arena, telling stories of people who are homeless, and you actually meet them and hear their stories and you get to know them as people. It's a really, really important work. So check out Invisible People if you haven't already.
I used to be a field reporter for Mark every now and again when I'd go to various cities when I was traveling for work, and I would just go and hang out with the homeless communities there and do some of the stuff I saw Mark do. I did it poorly because I'm not Mark, but
You're very good at talking to all sorts of people. I think you'd be great at it.
But to your point, I mean, it was so rare that I came across some, you would presume it's a massive amount of people with drug problems. You'd assume it's a massive amount of people with mental problems, which are, people with the drug problems are often the people treating the mental problems. But there were plenty of people that was just things happened, something got away from them, whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, I had that threat come to me. I had an unpaid bill, thank you, quarantine. And the first thing they said was like, well, if you're not going to pay the bill, we're going to auction your house off. I was like, that's the first thing we're going to go after here? Like, there's no like in between, like you want to auction my house off. So
yeah, I feel like there should be like degrees.
I could have been homeless myself. And there was no in the legal conversations. I represented myself because why not? If I couldn't pay their bills, how am I going to pay a lawyer?
You may headache. So
what happened was though, like I said, well, can't I just, pay in installments or something? No, we want the whole thing. Mm-hmm. So like I over like the last year or so had a moment where someone wanted to threaten me with that. I got it all handled. I paid for it and everything, but I was thinking, well, there, but for the grace of God, go I. And to your point, that's one set of population. Another set is they made the decision. They said, I'm keeping this dog, and that's more important to me than an address. That's pretty tough. Are these Stacey Coleman's in training in some ways?
I have no idea. I don't know what path they're going to go down. If it would be great if they find a way that they can use their experience to help educate other folks. I can tell you that I'm somebody who really wants to, like, I just don't believe things I read unless there's sources that I can double check and that sort of thing. So there was a couple of years ago, it's been a number of years now, when I was in Los Angeles once, and I said to my co-travelers, I said, I want to go down to Skid Row, and I want to talk to people who have pets. I want to know if they had their pets before they became houseless, or if they became houseless because they didn't want to give up their pets. I just want to know. And it's only anecdotal information, but I want to be able to talk to people and have a conversation with them. And I heard the most amazing answers, and down to every single person I spoke with, they said they wouldn't choose to go to shelter if it meant they had to give up their pet. They would rather stay where they were than give up their pet, than give up their companion.
Wow. So sure enough, your dad is no help in the comments section, Chris. I trained a pigeon to land on my outstretched arm. We used to feed them bread before we learned it was not good for them. Thanks for keeping us on track, Dad.
And you're right. Don't feed them bread. We have mallards in my town, and every other person in the town really loves to give them old sub rolls. I didn't know that everybody had 8,000 old sub rolls, but evidently that's what they think mallards eat. So I'm out there with corn and lettuce and some other weird stuff.
They eat lettuce? I didn't even know that.
Oh, they eat a really wide variety.
Well, I mean, like, should they? I guess they'll eat about anything, but like the question is it good for them? I don't know.
A monkey will eat dirt if you make him.
So I wonder, and I don't know if you can illuminate, Stacey, but how dogs even live this long, because they eat frickin' anything, and some of the stuff is really bad for them and dangerous. And to the point where owners are like chasing after them to take stuff out of their mouth all the time. Like, how are dogs still here?
Do you mean on the street?
Just like generally, like as a species.
That's one of the most common things said in my house is, what's in your mouth?
Yeah, they're like hell bent on killing themselves, eating nails or something.
Well, the very best thing to protect your dog from eating the wrong thing is to teach a good and solid drop it and leave it. So before it gets in their craw, teach them to leave it. And once it gets in their craw, tell them to drop it. So if you have those two things in your back pocket, you're going to be set. But yes, I've had dogs eat things that they just shouldn't. And my veterinarian is so rock solid. She doesn't even blink an eye anymore. She's just like, bring them in, or no, they're going to be fine. Or
she's got to be so world weary.
Give them a pet.
Another toy truck, another dog, just another day at the office.
Right.
Well, it was funny when you said that about training drop it. I only had 2 dogs in my whole life, and the first one did not have a very long life with me. But the second one, drop it, was essentially English language for run, right? Like that drop it meant get as far away from a human as you can to get this thing handled.
Yes, totally.
So my, growing up, my dog ate more Star Wars characters than any other creature had ever eaten a Star Wars character.
He could poop a sequel.
There were, you don't know how many Luke Skywalker heads sticking up in the backyard.
But does he have the original boxes?
No,
because he was such a bad child,
How did we get off the rails with somebody so grown up as Stacey?
I know.
What did we just do?
I blame Chip. But here we come to a crazy question, right? This is Stacey's second time on. Does that mean Stacey gets to add something to the backpack?
Yeah, I don't see why not.
I hope so.
I think
she
so.
did the work. She came back.
I think so. But before we do that, that's coming. But before we do that.
Oh, and here's our person of the day. Kaboom!
It's Wisely.
This landmine filled thing. You know what I'm doing? I'm doing it to Valerie. Valerie kept her hand on it.
It's a very mature choice.
And I like her. She's worth it. Okay. Stacey Coleman, before we let you go, thank you so much for coming by again. It was so important. But here we have this question here, which is what goes in your backpack. And the question is, either something physical, like a Star Wars figure, or it could be something metaphorical, like hope. I almost said soup. Like
like resilience. Grit.
Or risotto. So Stacey Coleman, what goes in your backpack this time?
This time, okay. Well, I put some thought into it, and I'm going to stick with what I had. One of the things I had last time, which is a poker face, because I don't play poker, but I've got a good poker face, and it comes in quite handy for under all kinds of circumstances. But last time I chose to take that cat video of the attorney that said, I'm not a cat. It's so last month, but that was what my choice before. But this time I'm taking the Dropkick Murphys with me in my backpack.
Love it.
Oh,
They have a new album coming out. They kept me entertained during the pandemic with their live streams. I love their music. And plus, they're the same age as me. So, like, if we're out on the road and I say, whoa, it's past my bedtime, they're not going to laugh at me.
I had one of their concert tees for years. I finally got too faded to wear. I love me some drop kicks.
Yeah.
There's a lot going on there. We're going to drag you down to our level, Valerie.
Look, I have so many things to say. So with the Dropkick Murphys, I presented at a conference, and right before I was supposed to go on stage, I don't like using slides because slides can get messed up, and I don't like giving people my slides in any format besides PDF because it means that they can change the font by mistake and ruin everything. Mm-hmm. And so I gave this group of people, they begged and begged and begged and argued and argued and argued. I said, fine, you can have it. And they wrecked my presentation. And they told me this 3.5 minutes before I was going to go on stage. So they know I'm from Boston. They think we're going to intro him onto the stage with the Dropkick Murphys. So on shipping up to Boston, please welcome Chris Brogan. I come out onto the stage. There's a table there for some reason. I don't even know why it's there. There's a little table. It's little. I kick it into 1,000 splinters. I'm just so mad. The crowd goes, "Wow!" It has nothing to do with my presentation. I'm just mad. And the poor woman who had to report to me that she wrecked my slide deck was crying backstage. She was, really upset. So there's one direct hit.
She needed a support cobra.
The band Clutch, who is also of our age and also in that sort of realm. I was on their tour bus once on a New Year's Eve show, because I'm friends with the bass player's wife. So I'm backstage in a tour bus and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what does this crowd think we're doing in this bus? It's like hookers and cocaine and stuff like that. And you know what it was? All we did was talk about iPhone apps and ate really bad Boston pizza because there's so many great Boston pizza places, but the bus driver didn't know. And we were all in bed like super early because we're all of an age. So there you go. All your Dropkick Murphys right there and whatnot.
There you go. I didn't know you were from Boston. So
I am. I'm originally from Maine. I live in Massachusetts most of my life. And that's a fine band. I mean, they're no mighty, mighty Boss Tones, but they
the Boss Tones, the Boss Tones gave them a leg up. They used them as their opening band. I think that's how they got big, right?
I think that is true.
Everybody learned about Dropkick Murphys.
Yep. So anyway, sorry, I went off the rails there, but it's my birthday. So that's why. So I like it. I like your pick for the backpack. So my grandmother did not like either band, but she was not really exposed to them. But she was a big Judas Priest fan, for real. She loved the song "Breaking the Law," and she also loved Barry Manilow. Not at the same time.